Snowflakes swirled through the vast winter sky, drifting down like tiny stars to blanket the earth. The world lay quiet, hushed by the soft embrace of the season. Deep in the heart of a frosted forest, Marena, the goddess of winter, stood atop a hill bathed in silvery light. Her long cloak shimmered like ice, her breath mingling with the cold air as she gazed into the distance. Boreas! She called, her voice clear and commanding, yet carrying the tenderness of freshly fallen snow. From the northern horizon came a low rumbling sound, followed by a rush of icy wind that whipped through the trees. The air grew colder as Boreas, the Greek god of the cold north wind and winter storms, appeared before her, his towering form cloaked in a tempest of frost. Marena, Boreas greeted, his deep voice resonating like the crack of frozen branches. You summon me. What is your will? Morena's pale blue eyes met his stormy gaze. I ask a favor of you, old friend. This winter has been long and harsh. The people and the creatures of the earth are weary. For their sake, I ask you to stay your fiercest winds and bring no more of your icy wrath. Boreas folded his arms, the winds around him howling softly as if considering her words. You know my nature, goddess. To withhold my storms is to stifle my purpose. Why do you make this request? Marena stepped closer, her presence radiating a calm strength. Because even the coldest season needs balance. The joy of winter comes not only from its power but from its beauty and peace. Let the snow fall gently for a time, so the world may find comfort in the stillness. Boreas frowned, his expression thoughtful. And what of my winds? Without them, the world may grow too soft, unprepared for what follows. Marena smiled, a serene and knowing smile. Your winds will always have their place, but not now. There is strength in quietude too, Boreas. Trust me, as you have before. The storm god's eyes softened, and the gale around him subsided. With a reluctant nod he said, Very well, Marena. For you I will temper my winds, for a time. Marena inclined her head in gratitude. Thank you, Boreas. The earth will sing of your kindness even in the cold. With that, Boreas swept back into the north, his presence fading into the vast sky. The snow continued to fall, softer now, blanketing the world in peace. Marena stood alone for a moment, her gaze following his retreat, before she turned and walked away, her heart lighter for the harmony she had restored. Marena stood at the edge of the clearing, watching the serene beauty of the calm winter she had shaped. Snow sparkled like powdered diamonds, and the gentle laughter of children and animals echoed faintly through the trees. She closed her eyes, feeling the quiet hum of gratitude radiating from every being touched by the peace she had brought. It warmed her immortal heart, a rare and fleeting comfort in her cold dominion. But then, like a discordant note in a symphony, she felt it, a pain, faint but sharp, threading its way into the harmony of the moment. Her eyes snapped open, scanning the forest with careful precision. What was this disturbance? It didn't take long for her gaze to fall upon a small figure wandering among the trees. A young reindeer with a bright red nose, glowing softly like an ember against the pale snow, moved aimlessly. His steps were slow, his head hung low, as if the weight of the world rested upon his small shoulders. Around him, the joyous energy of winter seemed to dissipate, unable to reach him. Marena's expression remained serene, but the snow at her feet began to stir. With a subtle motion of her hand, the frost gathered beneath her and carried her closer to the sad little creature. Her movements were as fluid and silent as the falling snow, but when she came near, the reindeer noticed. Startled, he stopped in his tracks, his ears twitching nervously. He lifted his head, and his wide, tear-brimmed eyes met hers. For a moment he simply stared, as though doubting his own sight. Then he spoke in a trembling voice. "Marena, is that you?" She smiled softly, her presence radiating a quiet reassurance. "It is I, little one. Do not be afraid, tell me. Why does such sorrow weigh upon you on a day when the world is at peace?" The reindeer hesitated, his gaze shifting to the ground. I don't belong here," he said at last, his voice barely above a whisper. Marena knelt gracefully beside him, the snow forming a soft cushion beneath her. "What makes you say that?" she asked gently. "My nose," he murmured, his red glow dimming slightly as if ashamed. "It's too bright, too different. I can't hide it, and it makes me stand out. The others stare, they laugh sometimes, or they avoid me altogether. Even on days like this, when everyone's happy, I feel alone." Marena's gaze softened, and she placed a hand lightly on his head. "Oh, little one," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "The light that you carry is not a burden, it is a gift." The reindeer frowned, confusion flickering across his face. "A gift? How can something that makes me so different be a gift?" "Because it is precisely your difference that makes you extraordinary," Marena explained, her words flowing like a gentle stream. "You may not see it now, but there will come a time when your light will shine brighter than ever, and it will guide others through their darkest hours. You are not alone, for the world needs you just as you are." The reindeer blinked, her words settling into his heart like a seed planted in fertile soil. He wanted to believe her, though doubt lingered like a shadow. "Do you really think so?" "I know so," Marena replied with a knowing smile. "Trust in your light, little one. It will lead you to where you are meant to be." The reindeer's red nose glowed a little brighter, as if her words had stoked a fire within him. For the first time in days, he felt a glimmer of hope. Marena rose, the snow swirling gently around her once more. "Now go and find joy in the winter's beauty," she said, "and remember you are never truly alone." With that, the goddess began to fade into the frosty air, her presence lingering like the faintest touch of warmth on a winter breeze. The little reindeer stood still for a moment, gazing at the spot where she had been. Then, with his heart feeling lighter and his nose shining a bit brighter, he turned and made his way back through the forest, ready to face the world anew. The little reindeer trudged through the forest, his hooves leaving faint tracks in the snow. Marena's words swirled in his mind like the snowflakes overhead. "A gift, not a burden," she had said. Could it truly be so? His glowing nose had always felt like a mark of shame, a beacon that made him stand out in ways he wished he didn't. Yet, for the first time, he considered the possibility that his difference might hold some hidden purpose. Lost in his thoughts, the little reindeer didn't notice the thinning of the trees around him. The tall pines gave way to open skies, and soon he found himself stepping out of the forest. Before him lay a human village, its houses crowned with roofs of snow. Children played in the open square, their laughter rising above the crackling of a large campfire. Torches soaked in pig fat burned brightly at every doorway, casting a warm golden glow that stood in stark contrast to the chilly air. The reindeer froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He had crossed the boundary of Aranyani's domain, the goddess of forests and wild animals. He was no longer under her protection. This was human territory, a place where wild creatures like him did not belong. Instinctively, he tried to stay still, hoping to blend into the shadows. But his glowing red nose betrayed him, shining like a beacon in the dim evening light. One of the children, a small boy dressed in fur-lined boots and a woolen cloak, noticed the reindeer first. His eyes widened in amazement, and before the reindeer could react, the boy ran toward him with open arms. "You're beautiful!" the boy exclaimed as he wrapped his arms around the little reindeer's neck. His touch was warm, and his innocent laughter bubbled with pure joy. The reindeer stiffened in surprise, but the boy radiated such love and kindness that he couldn't bring himself to pull away. Moments later, other children noticed the boy and the strange, glowing reindeer. They ran over, their faces alight with wonder. "Look at his nose!" a girl cried. "It's glowing like a star." "Let's dance!" another shouted. The children surrounded the little reindeer, their hands brushing his fur as they laughed and danced in a circle around him. For the first time in his life, the reindeer felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. Their joy was infectious, and he couldn't help but let out a small, delighted snort. This, he thought, must be what Marena meant. His nose, his difference, had brought these children happiness. But the moment of bliss was short-lived. From the houses surrounding the square, the village elders emerged. Drawn by the commotion, they stepped into the cold night, their faces hard and withered by years of toil. The sight of children playing with a wild animal made their expressions darken. "Get away from that beast!" one of them bellowed, his voice cutting through the children's laughter. "It's dangerous!" another shouted, grabbing a torch. The children scattered as the elders armed themselves with torches and spikes, their fear and suspicion drowning out any thought of the reindeer's harmlessness. The little reindeer's heart sank as he saw the humans running toward him, their faces twisted with anger and fear. His moment of happiness shattered, replaced by a deep, primal urge to flee. Before they could reach him, he darted away, his hooves skimming the snowy ground. His glowing nose lit the path ahead as he raced back toward the safety of the forest. Behind him, the shouts of the humans faded, swallowed by the towering trees and the blanket of snow. Breathing hard, the reindeer finally stopped when he was deep within the woods once more. The shadows of the ancient trees wrapped around him like a protective cloak, and he felt the familiar presence of Aranyani's domain. But his heart was heavy. He thought of the children's laughter, of the joy they had shown in his presence. Was his light a gift, as Marena had said? Or was it a curse, drawing danger and fear wherever he went? He looked up at the snowy sky, his red nose glowing faintly in the darkness. For the first time he began to wonder if there might be a way to use his gift for good, a way to bring light to those who needed it most. The little reindeer wandered through the forest, his glowing nose lighting the path as he went. Despite the fear he'd felt fleeing the humans, a small warmth remained within him. The children's laughter, their joyful embraces, it lingered in his heart like a soft flame, flickering against the cold night. He walked for hours, the forest changing around him as the night deepened. The towering pines whispered softly in the wind, their branches heavy with snow. The stars above glimmered faintly, their light pale compared to the glow of his nose. Just as dawn began to tinge the horizon with the faintest hint of gold, he noticed something unusual. A small house nestled in a clearing. Smoke curled lazily from its chimney, and the warm, inviting glow of its windows spilled out onto the snow. The little reindeer hesitated, his steps faltering. This was no ordinary forest dwelling. Surrounding the house were animals of all kinds. Squirrels darted around tree stumps, birds perched on the eaves, and even a family of rabbits huddled by the door. Among them he spotted several other deer grazing peacefully near a wooden shed. Curiosity mingled with apprehension as he crept closer. His glowing nose cast a soft light, and he worried it might startle the animals. But to his surprise, the deer lifted their heads, their eyes warm and welcoming. One of them, a tall doe with sleek fur, stepped forward and nuzzled him gently. "Welcome, little one," she said in a voice like the rustling of leaves. "You found a safe place?" Encouraged by her kindness, the little reindeer joined the group. For the first time in what felt like forever, he felt at ease. He grazed quietly, listening to the soft murmurs of the other animals and watching the smoke rise from the chimney of the cozy house. But his peace was short-lived. The door to the house creaked open and a figure stepped outside. The little reindeer froze, his ears twitching nervously. The man who emerged was unlike anyone the reindeer had ever seen. He was tall and broad, with a long white beard that flowed down his chest. His red coat was lined with white fur, and his boots crunched softly in the snow as he approached the animals. There was a twinkle in his eye, a kind of magic that made the little reindeer feel both curious and comforted. "Ah, what have we here?" the man said in a deep, warm voice, his gaze falling on the little reindeer. "A new visitor? And such a special one, too." The other deer stepped aside as the man knelt in front of the little reindeer. His eyes softened as he took in the glowing red nose. "Well now," he said with a chuckle, "you're a bright one, aren't you?" The little reindeer took a cautious step back, but the man held out a hand, palm up, as if to show he meant no harm. "Don't be afraid, little one. You've nothing to fear here." Something about the man's presence was calming, and the little reindeer stepped forward hesitantly. The man reached out and gently stroked his neck, his touch warm despite the cold air. "You're a special one," the man said thoughtfully, his gaze lingering on the reindeer's nose. "I've been waiting for someone like you." The little reindeer tilted his head, his ears perking up. "Waiting for me?" The man laughed, a hearty sound that seemed to echo through the clearing. "Indeed, you see, I have a very important job to do every winter. I travel the world to bring joy and gifts to children everywhere. But on nights when the snow is thick and the skies are dark, it's not always easy to find my way. That's where you come in, my bright-nosed friend." The little reindeer's heart leapt. Could it be true? Could his nose, the thing he had always seen as a burden, really be the gift Marena had spoken of? The man rose to his feet, his gaze twinkling with excitement. "Come, little one, let's see what you're capable of. There's a sleigh waiting just for you." The other deer watched with quiet encouragement as the man led the little reindeer toward the shed. Inside, the little reindeer saw the most magnificent sleigh, polished to a shine and piled high with sacks of toys. As the sun rose higher, the little reindeer began to realize that his journey was only just beginning, and that his glowing nose, his gift, was about to light the way for something truly magical. The tall, bearded man knelt beside the little reindeer, his kind eyes sparkling with warmth. "Little one, what is your name?" he asked, his voice gentle but filled with an air of authority. "My name is Rudolph," the little deer replied, his voice timid but steady. The man smiled, his expression one of deep affection. He reached out and softly touched Rudolph's head, his hand radiating a comforting warmth. "Well, Rudolph, it's a pleasure to meet you," he said. "My name is Saint Nicholas, but you can call me Santa Claus, or just Santa, if you prefer." As he spoke, he waved his other hand through the crisp air, and with a flick of his wrist, a bright orange carrot appeared in his palm as if by magic. He held it out to Rudolph. "Here, a little treat for a very special reindeer," Santa said. Rudolph hesitated for only a moment before taking the carrot, crunching it gratefully. The sweetness of the gift made his heart feel lighter, and the kind man's presence filled him with a sense of belonging he had never known before. Santa stood, brushing snow from his coat. "Tonight, Rudolph, you'll learn something truly wonderful, the joy of giving, but for now, rest. You'll need your strength for the journey ahead." Rudolph nodded, feeling a flicker of excitement. The other deer guided him to a soft bed of hay beside the shed, and as he lay down, he could hear the soothing murmurs of the animals around him. The warmth of the barn and the kindness of his new companions soon lulled him into a peaceful sleep. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the forest and clearing became bathed in the silvery glow of moonlight. Inside the barn, Santa began to prepare for the most important night of the year. The sleigh, now fully loaded with gifts, sparkled as if imbued with its own magic. The reindeer were fitted with shining harnesses adorned with tiny golden bells that jingled softly with every movement. Santa approached Rudolph, who was now wide awake, his nose glowing faintly in the dim light. "Rudolph," Santa began, his tone serious but kind, "tonight I need your help. The sky is clouded and a storm brews to the north. The stars are hidden, and it will be difficult to find our way. Your glowing nose, it is exactly what we need to guide the sleigh and ensure every child receives their gift." Rudolph's heart raced. "Me? Lead the sleigh?" Santa nodded. "Yes, my boy. You may have felt different your whole life, but tonight your difference will make all the difference in the world. Are you ready?" Rudolph swallowed his nerves and took a deep breath. He thought of Marena's words, of the children's laughter in the village, and of the warmth he now felt among these new companions. Slowly he nodded. "I'm ready." Santa grinned. "That's the spirit." He turned to the other reindeer. "Comet, Dasher, Dancer, and the rest of you, Rudolph will lead the way tonight. Follow his light, and together we'll make this a Christmas to remember." The other reindeer cheered, their bells jingling merrily as they stomped their hooves in approval. Rudolph took his place at the front of the sleigh, his glowing nose shining brightly in the growing darkness. Santa climbed into the sleigh, taking hold of the reins. With a hearty laugh, he called out, "Now, Rudolph, guide us true! On Dasher, on Dancer, on Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen." With a great leap, the reindeer took off into the air, the sleigh gliding smoothly behind them. Snow swirled around them as they climbed higher, but Rudolph's nose cut through the storm like a beacon, casting a steady warm glow that illuminated the path ahead. Rooftop after rooftop, Santa delivered gifts with magical precision, sliding down chimneys and filling stockings with care. As the night wore on, Rudolph felt a deep sense of pride and purpose. The doubts and fears he had carried melted away, replaced by the joy of knowing he was helping bring happiness to so many. By the time the dawn began to break, the sleigh returned to the clearing near the cozy house in the forest. The reindeer landed gracefully, their bells jingling softly in the crisp morning air. Santa climbed down from the sleigh and walked over to Rudolph. He knelt beside him, placing a hand on his glowing nose. "Rudolph," Santa said, his voice full of gratitude, "you have shown courage, kindness, and a heart as bright as your nose. Tonight, you didn't just guide the sleigh, you brought light to the world." The other reindeer gathered around, cheering and nudging Rudolph affectionately. For the first time, Rudolph truly believed in himself and the gift he had to offer. From that night on, Rudolph became an irreplaceable part of Santa's team, his glowing nose a symbol of hope and guidance for all. And every Christmas Eve, when the sleigh took to the skies, Rudolph led the way with pride, lighting the path to joy and magic for all. As dawn painted the horizon with shades of pink and gold, Santa stood in the snow, surrounded by his faithful reindeer. He turned to Rudolph, his eyes twinkling like the stars that had hidden behind the storm. "Rudolph," Santa said warmly, "because of you, Christmas was saved. You've brought light to the darkest night and joy to every heart. Thank you, my bright-nosed friend." Rudolph's glowing nose shimmered softly, his chest swelling with pride and happiness. The other reindeer gathered around, their bells jingling in celebration. Santa turned to the sky, spreading his arms wide as if embracing the whole world. His deep booming voice carried through the crisp morning air. "To all who celebrate, may your Christmas be filled with love, laughter, and light. Remember that each of you has a gift, a unique spark that can brighten even the darkest times. Cherish it, share it, and let it shine." The animals around the cozy house seemed to pause in reverence, and the forest itself seemed to hold its breath as Santa spoke. "May your homes be warm, your hearts even warmer, and may the spirit of giving fill your days with magic. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a bright, beautiful day." With that, Santa climbed back into his sleigh, giving Rudolph a final nod of gratitude. "Rest well, my friends," he said to the reindeer. "Tonight's work is done, but the joy we've shared will last all year." As the sleigh rose into the air, the sound of jingling bells echoed through the forest, fading gently into the distance. Rudolph stood at the clearing's edge, watching Santa disappear into the morning sky. His heart brimmed with happiness and purpose. This Christmas, he had discovered the power of his gift and the true meaning of joy, love, and giving. And as the world stirred awake, Rudolph silently wished for everyone, everywhere. May you find your light, embrace it, and share it with the world. Merry Christmas.